First, as reported in the Australian today, at least two of Australia's biggest unions have called out Canberra over the mythical belief propagated by the Albanese Labor government during the last election campaign that the rush to renewables would be good for Australian workers. Now, it was always a fantasy, and the overpromising was always going to come back to bite the Labor government. You know how it went during the campaign. Whenever a senior Labor figure was, say, in the Hunter Valley or up in Gladstone or the Latrobe Valley, and they were asked about what would happen to coal miners or gas extractors, people working in power stations, what was going to happen to all those jobs with this rush to clean green energy. Now, inevitably, with the wave of a hand from the Prime Minister or his maniacal Energy Minister Chris Bowen or the Treasurer Jim Chalmers, workers were fobbed off with the line that, look, Australia's going to become a renewable energy superpower and there'll be thousands and thousands of new green jobs. Now, clearly many of these communities believed it and Labor had a famous victory, although I suspect that was more about how disliked the Morrison government had become after Abbott, Turnbull and Morrison. The mob wanted some sort of a change. Well, here we are, halfway through the term of this government, and the harsh reality is starting to bite. Now, as reported in the Australian today, and it was this comment from Australian Workers' Union boss Steve Murphy that stood out for me. Murphy said plainly, no, he no longer believes the green jobs malarkey, and he said, quote, if we don't have the job targets to go along with the emissions targets, we are going to go into another climate culture war. Then he belled the cat, saying, quote, we were supposed to be a renewable energy superpower, but we are not making any of this. We're not making the wind towers, we're not making the solar panels, and we're not making the wind turbines. Bang, there you have it, in a nutshell. This government, with its obsession with climate change, is intending to force closure of coal mines, costing thousands of jobs, to replace them with foreign-made green energy machinery that, once erected, will require a fraction of the manpower to maintain. We just saw Caleb Bond with some graphics showing how few jobs will stay beyond construction. Stupidly, this country, which brags to the world about our abundance of sun and wind, isn't even smart enough to produce the equipment required to generate green energy. And if the unions are awake up to the glacial pace of this green dream, then the government is in for a hell of a time. And the AWU is absolutely right. We import all this material from China. The Chinese must think we are a bunch of mugs. But as far as I can remember, the renewable energy superpower line went unchallenged. That's until now. And if you weren't nervous before about late last week when people in Sydney were told, oh, well, hang on, don't put on your air conditioner, can you imagine what a high, hot summer will be like? Oh, and just a footnote. Seeing those floodwater pictures out of far north Queensland and further south, what happens to a paddock full of solar panels if we get rain like that? Just a thought.